Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to rise and speak at third reading of Bill 49. Now, the Minister for Public Safety has made some extensive remarks. I will say they were much more balanced remarks, certainly delivered in a much more thoughtful tone than I've heard from the Minister on this bill so far, and I do appreciate the consideration he put into it. I want to talk through a little bit what the Minister had to say and sort of share some of my concerns. So the Minister started out by talking. He said Bill 49 is about providing effective policing for Albertans, particularly in rural Alberta, that those in rural Alberta should be able to expect the same level of service in their communities as in large municipalities. That Albertans should get what they pay for and they should feel safe and secure in their homes. Mr. Speaker, on that I can say we agree. We have the same goal. Me, as the MLA for the heart of Edmonton, and the Minister from the suburbs of South Calgary, both of us in our urban privilege, agree that those in communities across the province should be able to expect support from police, to feel safe in their communities, to get value for their dollars that are spent on policing. Indeed, I've had a chance to talk with a lot of folks from around the province about this too, much like the Minister has had some excellent conversations recently with representatives at the Alberta Association of Police Governance Conference in Westlock, with folks that came here to Edmonton from across the province for the Alberta Community Crime Prevention Association Conference last week. Now, the Minister talked about how folks are asked, he asked folks one question: are you happy with policing in your community? He said he heard a resounding no. Well, and he blamed that, Mr. Speaker. He said he had to do something about the RCMP. Well, I will tell you, we have polling data from Polaris Strategic Insights from June of last year that noted 77% of Albertans in RCMP-served communities remain satisfied with the policing services they receive. 86% of them wanted to retain the RCMP. So the Minister took a strikingly different tone today in speaking about the RCMP, and I did appreciate that. We have seen some very combative language from the Minister previously. Indeed, we are in National Police Week, which I recognized yesterday, and even last year in his statement for National Police Week, the Minister could not resist taking a swipe at the RCMP. So I do appreciate that he took a moment today to clarify his support for the men and women on the front lines and the work they do. I would suggest to the Minister that it's not quite so easy to divorce those men and women from their union, which he has attacked, and in which many of those members themselves serve, and from the administration and other portions of that organization. Now, he talked at length, or he has talked at length a number of times about concerns around vacancy rates and the numbers, and certainly the Minister has some very creative interpretations, likes to play a little fast and loose with the numbers, perhaps, not quite sure whether he understands them or not. We've heard him change his tune a number of times. But he talked about meeting with municipal leaders. He talked about meeting with people in different communities. He talked about meeting with First Nation leaders. And he said that is where he had his support, and he shared a number of stories, a number of anecdotes. Didn't provide, I noted, the single name of an actual councillor, mayor, First Nations chief, not even a specific community, perhaps because the last time he did that in previous debate, well, a number of people had to call him out, even actually taking out an advertisement in the Edmonton Journal to combat misinformation in that what they believe were misstatements by the Minister on the record. So he was a little more careful today. And I'll be clear, Mr. Speaker, you know what? I imagine there is some truth in what the Minister is saying. People are frustrated. They are concerned. I don't dispute with the Minister that there is, in fact, a problem here. But the thing is, Mr. Speaker, we're not here today to debate whether there is a problem. When the government is bringing forward Bill 49, what they are asking us to debate is their proposed solution. Now, the Minister's argument appears to be that the problem is so bad we should be willing to just blindly accept any solution he brings forward. Whatever he puts on the table, rubber stamp it, push it through, as we sit here in time allocation. a third reading of this bill. But the fact is, if this minister's solution is so good, he must be doing a terrible job of selling it. Because the fact is, Mr. Speaker, the minister has not brought forward a single validator for Bill 49, not one. We have heard anecdotes, we have heard stories. We have not seen a single person stand and endorse Bill 49. Not one mayor, not one councillor, not one First Nations chief or councillor, not even the sheriffs themselves. Now, a number of those folks have expressed deep concerns with Bill 49. They have a number of questions about this minister's proposed solutions, but he has not been able to put forward a single person that endorses it. Likely because, well, let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, the minister has entirely failed to consult on his solution. I have to question whether there is even an understanding with this government about what consultation actually means, what it entails. Consultation means ongoing engagement, Mr. Speaker. Actually checking in at multiple points as you develop a plan, as you work towards a solution to make sure all the pieces are going to work, get the perspectives of all the people that are going to be involved, all the people that are going to be impacted. Then you bring a draft of that plan forward, and then you ask for feedback. You ask for the considerations. You say, is there anything I'm missing here? Are there blind spots? Are there places where this is not going to work? Mr. Speaker, you do that before you put the solution on the table, before you bake it into legislation and propose to spend hundreds of millions of public dollars on it. The minister has done none of that. He stands in the House and he talks about the problem. He has had relatively little to say about the many, many questions about his proposed solution. The minister says he's doing this for municipalities. Well, the fact is, Mr. Speaker, municipalities, many of them are saying they do not want this. Certainly, the large majority of municipalities, through their elected representatives, through rural municipalities of Alberta, through Alberta municipalities, are saying they have a lot of questions that they want to see answered before they'd even consider this minister's proposed solution. So again, if there are this many questions existing now, and let's be clear, a lot of the questions that exist now, Mr. Speaker, are exactly the same questions that were raised over a year ago when the minister introduced the first piece in these two pieces, Bill 11. And the fact that these folks are still asking the same questions this year with Bill 49 means that this minister clearly has not consulted. So he's bringing forward a solution to what is a real problem, but a solution on which he has not bothered to talk to any of the people he claims he's trying to help. From the rural municipality of Alberta's analysis, they ask, well, what is the rationale for the creation of this independent police force? Mr. Speaker, they are asking, why are you doing this? If that is the question your primary stakeholders are asking, the folks you say you're trying to help, Mr. Speaker, I'd say you've failed at your job. If they don't know why the heck you're doing what you're doing, you have utterly failed in your communication, your engagement, your consultation. And again, this is not a small thing, Mr. Speaker. This is the creation of an entirely new independent police force in the province of Alberta that will wield extraordinary power, that will cost hundreds of millions of dollars, that will require significant infrastructure and investment and training. They're asking, what are the training requirements for the officers that you're going to be putting into this agency? Is that training going to be standardized across the province? What's the cost of that training going to be? What's the cost of the service going to be? The minister spoke at length about his deep concerns about the cost of RCMP policing. He's deeply concerned, he says, about that cost going up. But Mr. Speaker, he has refused to give a single, even vague estimate of what the service he's going to provide will cost. He's going to offer a franchise, but he's not going to tell anybody what the price is going to be. Now, what we have seen with this government is that they've gone out of their way to subsidize competition, because this is what this government does, Mr. Speaker. If they see something they don't like, often it's a public service, whether that's, public health care, surgeries, hospitals. In this case, it's policing. saw it happen with lab services. What this government does is it uses the power of government and the public purse to create competition, to try to drive the public service out of business. And they will heavily subsidize in order to do that. That comes at a cost to the taxpayer. So far, in every case where the government has done this, primarily in healthcare, it has resulted in worse service and higher costs. In the case of Dynalife, government having to bail out the private provider and take it back into the public at an increased cost to taxpayers. So when municipalities, when First Nations and folks ask this minister for some actual detail about what all of this is going to cost, they've got darn good reason. And so far, this minister has been either unable to provide an answer or simply is refusing to do so because he doesn't want to actually be open about what that cost is going to be. So he can stand here, he can criticize the RCP all he wants, but until he puts his figures on the table, his solution is no solution at all. It is a shell. It is an empty claim. And that's why municipalities aren't buying it. That's why they are not convinced. That is why they continue to ask questions and speak out against Bill 49. Now let's talk about another one of the minister's claims, Mr. Speaker. The minister likes to talk about this report, this study he's quoting, that he claims is official policy of the federal government. So what he is talking about, Mr. Speaker, is a document called A New Policing Vision for Canada, Modernizing the RCMP, published, as he said, on March 10th, 2025. Let's be absolutely clear, Mr. Speaker, about what this is. This is not a statement from the RCMP. This is not the official policy of Public Safety Canada. What it is, it's a white paper that was commissioned by the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He dropped that white paper on his last day in office, on his way out the door, dropped it in the basket, and walked off into the sunset. That is what this minister is ranting about, Mr. Speaker. What he claims he is basing his $100 million solution on that nobody seems to endorse or want. On a former Prime Minister who is no longer in office at a time when we have an entirely new government of Canada, a new Prime Minister, new ministers, none of whom have endorsed this paper. So what I would say, Mr. Speaker, if that is the basis of the minister's arguments of what he is claiming, that his solution that he believes everyone should vote for without costing, without detail, he's dealing in weak sauce. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we know where the roots of this come from. This all started years back with the Fair Deal panel under Premier Kenney, when he was doing a light version of what we see the Premier pursuing now, trying to coddle separatists, trying to tamp down a faction of his party that ended up taking him out and taking him down, bringing us to the current Premier. And as part of those discussions, they talked about an Alberta pension plan, they talked about an Alberta Provincial Police force, and they made recommendations and they brought forward at that time, Mr. Speaker, at least they had the courage to actually do the study and put out the costing. And when we saw that costing, when municipalities got a look at it, they said, no, thank you. Because we were looking at significant cost. Now, suddenly the minister claims he's got a miracle cure. He's found a new solution. The minister talks about how he's in fact going to build it around Alberta Sheriffs, and that's going to save all kinds of money. Now, of course, the minister says he also wants to pay sheriffs more, so we don't know where he's going to save this money. And the fact is, we know he also didn't even talk to Alberta Sheriffs when he prepared for this bill. He's had a year, 6 months since the Premier promised that any municipality in the province could have a detachment of Alberta Sheriffs if they wanted one. They haven't even bothered to talk to the sheriffs themselves. And on that, Mr. Speaker, I want to take a moment. Because, Mr. Speaker, when I make a mistake, I want to admit it. Now, the Alberta Sheriffs Branch Office Association, when Bill 49 was tabled, they put out a letter expressing their concerns with this bill. Let's be clear, Mr. Speaker, it did not express support for the bill. It expressed many different concerns. And I want to acknowledge on the record, Mr. Speaker, that I misread and misinterpreted some aspects of that letter. And so I misspoke in some of my earliest critiques of this bill, in which I said Alberta Sheriffs did not support the creation of an Alberta Provincial Police Force. What I want to clarify, Mr. Speaker, is that indeed there are Alberta Sheriffs who have taken on significant policing responsibilities under this minister, who has increased their responsibilities, and he talked about it himself, increased their stress, their responsibilities, but he has not increased their pay commensurately. But there are Alberta Sheriffs who enjoy that and welcome that and would welcome an opportunity to become full peace officers, to work as police. So I will correct my statement, and I will acknowledge that is a desire. But I will also say, I took the opportunity and actually sat down and met with Don Tornway, the president of that association, to discuss it. My colleague from Beverly Clearview met with representatives for sheriffs with their union, AUPE, which, Mr. Speaker, again, is more than the minister has done, despite the fact that it is his bill, his solution, his claim that he wants to help these men and women in our province. But we did take the opportunity to speak with them and hear their concerns, and yes, they are interested in this path to become full police, but they have significant concerns with Bill 49 about, well, what is training actually going to be? What are the wages going to be? The sheriffs do not agree with the minister's plan that he floated without ever speaking to them of taking half of them away into a different agency and leaving the other half behind. They want to remain unified. And one of the other things, when I spoke with them, when I met with them, when we met with them, sheriffs themselves said they have problems with staffing too. And they are concerned that if this minister takes half of the sheriff's force away, they said they're already struggling to cover some of their core duties, prisoner transfers, court coverage. And they say if the minister takes half the sheriffs away, who's going to cover that? That's going to fall on the rest of us? We don't have enough people to staff. Now, the minister accuses the RCMP a lot when it comes to staffing and numbers, but you know what the rural municipality of Alberta said, Mr. Speaker? The minister has indicated that staffing shortages and delayed response times in rural areas are key reasons for creating this independent police service. However, recruitment and retention of police officers is a challenge not only throughout the province, but nationwide. Unfortunately, there has been a lack of transparency regarding the current state of policing in Alberta, without reputable or consistent data being made available to understand the status of policing in the province. There's no evidence to show a new policing agency would remedy this issue. So I'm coming to the end of my time, Mr. Speaker. I think I've covered a lot of ground. So again, what I want to be absolutely clear about is we as Alberta New Democrats recognize the problem. We believe that Albertans deserve a solution. Albertans in rural communities deserve a real solution. But what we can see clearly is what we have in front of us is either a half-baked solution or one where the minister is hiding his intent. Because there's a lot of unanswered questions that have been out in the open for over a year. Numerous requests from the very stakeholders that this minister claims he is trying to help. Then he is refusing to answer those questions, leaving sweeping amounts of how all of this is going to work, how this is going to function, to regulations that are going to be written behind closed doors. That is not leadership, Mr. Speaker. That is not what an ethical, competent government does. And that is why I cannot support Bill 49. We need to find a solution for our communities, but it's pretty clear this solution is not about doing what municipalities need. It is doing about what this minister, this premier, this government want. And those are two very different things, Mr. Speaker. We owe Albertans better. We owe them real solutions, real investments across the board on a number of fronts in the complexity of all the different services, all the different partners and collaborators that are going to help us build safe communities. Policing, absolutely, a key component of that. We need a better solution than what this minister is putting forward, and his questionable reasons for doing so. So I will not be voting in support of Bill 49.